Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Empower Series Online. My name is Clifton Johnson. I'm the founder of the Empower Series Incorporated, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization brought to you by the generous donations of Comerica Bank, AE Media Group, you, and other partnering organizations like Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses. If you want to find out more about the Empower Series, be empowered and inspired to thrive by checking out our website, www.empowerseries.com. Also, connect with us on all of our social media accounts. You're on YouTube now, so remember to subscribe and hit the little bell so that you're notified when we upload videos. Today's topic is going to be on entrepreneurship. The actual title is that every idea is a big idea, especially when you begin with the end in mind. We have two guests, Josh Johnson, who's a business advisor with Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses, and we have attorney Carlos White, who's a partner at Husch Blackwell. They both help businesses, whether they're in the startup phase or mature phase, create an expansion plan so they can grow their business. And we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about how do you begin with the end in mind, being a good steward of your idea so that you structure your company from the very beginning as scalable and franchisable. And then also, if you didn't do that, how you can shift and pivot and put those things in place so that you can continue to grow and be a blessing for millions of people. We're going to talk about the hindrance of lack of capital. What are the solutions around that? And then lastly, we're going to talk about what's the most important resource? Is it relationships, knowledge, or money? And so we all have a perspective on that, and we'll give that to you. But more importantly, we're going to connect you to some resources that you can definitely take action on. Josh, welcome to the Empower Series. Tell us a little bit about yourself and Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses for those people who are not familiar.
Great. My name is Josh Johnson. I'm one of the business advisors for the 10,000 Small Business, Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program. I have been in business for about 15, 20 years. Can't believe it's been that long. But Goldman Sachs itself started an initiative where they wanted to enrich small businesses and educate small businesses around the country. And 10,000 small businesses later, I can tell you they use the same formula when educating small businesses. And that formula is, first we do small business education for growth, curriculum designed by Babson College, the nation's top ranked entrepreneurial school in the country. And we support that, we include that with support network services for advisors and peers and other businesses in the DFW as well as the US. And then finally, we add access to capital, which means we teach you how to be bankable. And that formula, which is again, business education, support services, and access to capital, we believe equals revenue growth and job creation.
And you do that for certain companies that have to qualify for your program. So tell me about the qualifications of the program.
So I'm glad you asked that question. You can get more information on our services at www.dccccd.edu/10KSB. Again, that is www.dccccd.edu/10KSB. But to give you a little bit of information, we have 3 cohorts a year, and that's spring, summer, fall. We're now currently doing our spring cohort, and our summer has just ended. The application process for our summer has just ended, but just be looking down the pipeline because there will be some information coming up on our fall cohort. Who should apply? So if you are a business owner or a co-business owner, or if you have a letter of support from the business owner and you're a current manager, executive manager, you are very much qualified to be in this program. You have to be in business 2 years, earned at least $75,000 in the most recent fiscal year. Again, that's taken into account COVID-19. You have to employ at least 2 employees. You can be one of those employees, and you can also have a temporary or contractor to serve as an employee as well. Now, most importantly, do you have the desire, the motivation, the dedication to grow your business and to create jobs in the DFW and nationwide? If that's what you are, if you have that passion and that sweat equity that we've been talking about, then this program is definitely for you. Again, we limit it to about 40 people per cohort. It's very, very competitive. We average about 120 to 180 applicants each cohort. However, if you don't get in, that's not the end all be all. Make sure you come to a lot of our free events. We have networking events. We have empowerment education series of our own, not like this one, but other 10KSB empowerment education programs. And then we also, again, you're more than welcome to apply again for the next cohort if you weren't able to get into this one. So again, if you have any, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. So this is funded by a grant by the Goldman Sachs Foundation. So the cost for the participants is what?
The cost for the participants is zero. I don't like to use the word free because there's no value in free, but I do like to say that the value is your sweat equity, and the rest, the financial portion, which is usually we've equated that to be about $75,000 in almost a small business education, has been funded and provided for you on behalf by Goldman Sachs.
Yeah, so really the cost is not a financial cost, but they are paying the most precious resource they have, which is their time.
Absolutely.
They will never get that back. So sweat equity is priceless. So thank you. We're gonna give you an opportunity to talk more about the Goldman Sachs program and the value that people will get from participating in that. So thank you for sharing that, Josh. And then Carlos, welcome back to the Empower Series, bruh.
Glad to be back.
I know, man. It's good seeing you again, at least virtually. Is that the times have changed, haven't they?
Absolutely so. It seems like I've seen you more in Atlanta than in Dallas. That's sad because we both are in Dallas, live in Dallas. So.
Well, Carlos, man, for those people who are not familiar with who you are, go ahead and introduce yourself, and then more importantly, talk about the firm that you're working with now, which is a new firm than last year, and what you guys do for small businesses as well as for mature businesses as well.
Absolutely. Again, well, first, I must give a shout out to the Empower Series. I mean, it's truly a pleasure to participate on this panel and working with Clifton as well as Josh, some of the leading minds with respect to entrepreneurship. And the Empower Series is really beneficial to its stakeholders and helps to remove a lot of the information barriers that many entrepreneurs face. Now, Clifton, as being a lawyer, let me get my disclaimer out the way before I proceed. Okay. The information provided during this presentation is for general purposes only. It does not and is not intended to constitute tax or legal advice. Finished. Okay. Now, with respect to your specific question, in a nutshell, I try to consider myself a business optimizer that help companies kind of map out and implement business sustainability and growth strategies. This entails setting up companies, ownership and management structure, developing multiple channels of distribution, protecting the company and its assets, as well as serving as a networker to link companies with the right relationships and opportunities that can help them raise capital or grow their business. As you can imagine, lack of resources is a constant reframe that we always hear. So to help entrepreneurs understand the value of legal business strategy, my firm, Husch Blackwell, which is located through 18 cities throughout the United States, top-tier law firm, basically provide any full service related business matters, has basically, and I have developed what we call the Communities for Change Initiative. And under this initiative, we are providing qualifying minority businesses or entrepreneurs with a combination of up to 4 hours of pro bono business free legal work and substantially discounted legal rates after the pro bono services had ended. Our hope is that this pro bono work, coupled with the discounted legal fees, will help provide a substantial lift to these businesses and help them understand the indispensable part that legal strategy plays in operating a successful company.
Yeah, man, because I can imagine when people are starting a business, they're limited on cash, they're putting in that sweat equity, like you said, Josh, and they're not really valuing the importance of legal advice when you're structuring your company to make sure that it's scalable, it can grow, you can achieve your end game. So I want to definitely give you an opportunity, Carlos, to talk more about that program and how people can stay connected with you and not just take advantage of your legal services from that perspective, but really let people know about the community change initiative that you just talked about. So thank you guys both for spending time with us. Like I said, the topic of our conversation is all about, every idea is a big idea, beginning with the end in mind. And I'm sure you have both a lot of experiences of working with business owners who may not have had that perspective, or they're coming to you with a good idea and you're helping coaching them through it. So Josh, so for your experience in working with business owners, how would you consult a business owner who's coming to you with an idea and you want to coach them through beginning with the end in mind?
Great question, Clifton. And before I start, I normally tell my clients that come in, you can do any of the things that we recommend at any point in your business development and growth. Carlos and I are giving you best practices, but remember though, whenever you go through and decide, I'm going to do it just a little bit differently, timing is critical resource that may translate to loss of money or loss of resources if you have to go back and fix it. And the reason why I say that is a lot of times people say, Josh, listen, I don't have the money for an accountant. I don't have the money for an attorney. I don't have the money for an advisor. I get it. Zig Ziglar says you don't have to be great to start, but you do have to start to be great. So you know what? Go ahead and get started. Build your business to greatness, but understand that there is a cost associated with having to go back and redo some of the things that you didn't do based on moving without the end game in mind. But the end game in mind is a basic recipe. And so let's just kind of go over the basic recipe. Number one, develop the idea before moving into execution. I can't tell you how many times a client has come to me, they've started their LLC, they've started the bank account, they've started the business, but they don't have the full idea put into a tangible business model. And so what winds up happening is they spin their wheels very, very often. Number two, research. I can't tell you how many times you need to research. If you've researched, go back and research again. Number one, what I normally use is the business model canvas, and I'll have a link provided to you with that. The business model canvas just shows you how to go and create a full-on workflow of your business, from creating the entity, creating the value proposition, and getting people to pay you for those services in a profitable manner. The second part to that research is building a franchise prototype. If you've read the book E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, he talks about creating a franchise prototype, which means create this business not for today, but create it as if I'm going to be selling franchises in the next 30 to 60 days. Go ahead and put all of those things out, map all of those things out. And you're going to map them out from a level strategy formulation perspective. Number one, the corporate level strategy. That is the 10,000 foot view all the way down. What is the overall mission, vision, and goal of the company? Number two, the business level strategy. That is your management principles. That is how you're going to manage the workflow. And then finally, the most basic, and the one that we all use when we first start our business, is the functional level strategy. And that is, what am I going to be doing on the day-to-day operations? How am I going to get business on the day-to-day operations? How am I going to fulfill those orders and complete those services? And then how am I going to get paid to complete those orders and fill those services? Next, once I do that, we go into what I like to call learn your industry. A lot of times my small business owners, they love coming up with their products and services, but they have no clue as to who they're selling them to. So you know what? We need to learn more about our industry. We need to learn more about our market demographic and who are our competitors in the field. And finally, we need to learn about our customer. What are the pain points that we will be solving with our product or service? Again, most of my people, they don't do that. They just say, I want to create this widget, and they move forward with it. Doing that and not being in touch or in tune with your customers is almost detrimental to your business. Get a sounding board. That's number 4. Get a sounding board. Mentor, accountability buddies. You do great things when you have more people surrounding you and supporting you. So the first thing you're going to do with your accountability board is you're going to create your vision, your mission, your value proposition, and your 30-minute business pitch, right? Because again, most of my clients, they go into banks and they tell them what they want to do. And it's a whole lot of uhs and ums and ahs and, oh, I didn't think about that. You know what? get with your team, get with your mentors, iron those things out so that you'll be polished and professional when you finally go in touch and get in touch with those paid support services. Create a business plan. That is number 5. I can't tell you how many times clients have come to me with great ideas, and I'll tell you about a quick lube company, but have great ideas, but they get turned down by the bank and financial institutions because they don't have a plan put together. Number 6, practice your business. This is the part where, you know what, I want to go ahead and get started. If you have a restaurant, go ahead and practice the menu items that you're going to do. If you have a t-shirt shop, go ahead and make some of those t-shirts that we've been talking about. Practice your business so that you can have some tangible results that you can prove that your business model works. Henry Ford said, and I love this quote, he says, "I love American capitalism. It's the only place your customers actually pay you to learn and improve." And that's what you're doing when you're starting out and doing your soft open or starting your business for the month. Number 7, now you're ready for those paid advisory teams. One of the things that Master P said that I absolutely love is when he was selling tapes out of the trunk of his car, every dollar that he made did not go to buying rims, buying cars, buying clothes. Every dollar that he made went into a savings account so that he can finally pay for that accounting service that he needed, that attorney service that he needed, that advisor service that he needed, that training that he needed. So he invested in himself. Even though he didn't have the money initially, he made sure that he saved that money so that when he was ready for that time, he had the capital to pay those people. And then finally, once we have that plan in mind and we've figured out what the beginning is and what the end looks like, now we're ready to fund that growth. Now we're ready to go into the bank with a tangible plan, tangible results, tangible support services, and say, give me the money.
Yeah, man. So that's an awful lot. And like you said, sometimes people just jump into business and they don't do all of those 8 things, but it's critically important that they start that.
Absolutely, it is. I had a client that came to me. He was turned down by multiple multiple banks, and he wanted to open up a quick lube place. And they told him he didn't have the capital. He needed, we found out that he needed basically about $50,000 cash injection to create this quick lube place. And he was close. He had $5,000, not really that close. So what we had to do was figure out how to come up with an additional $45,000. One of the things that I tell people all the time is that money is one resource of many. Creativity, knowledge, relationships are just as valuable as money. And so what we wound up doing is figuring out that the land that he wanted to use had pulpwood on it. It had some other mineral resources on it. And it actually had about 7 or 8 cars abandoned on that lot. And now to you and I, that probably doesn't mean anything. However, we were able to get 3 bids for pulpwood for basically about $20,000 to $30,000. We were able to get bids to remove the cars of about $5,000 or $6,000, and we were able to get bids for the mineral resources that was about $10,000 or $15,000. All of a sudden, with that creativity and with those relationships, we went back to the bank and we told the bank, listen, we don't have $5,000 cash, but if you give us this loan today to buy the land, I will have somebody clear the land and pay me $30,000. I will have somebody clear the cars and pay me $5,000. I will have somebody clear to take the mineral rights that I don't need to use for my quick lube place and pay me an additional $20,000. So you know what, bank? I have $75,000 now. And guess what happened? We got that loan.
Yeah, that's just an example of not giving up, right? And
absolutely.
Creative and tapping into a team with other people who have those kind of ideas to make things happen. You know, what I tell people, Carlos, is when you're using professionals, what you're really getting is their experience of working with thousands of other clients that have been through situations that you don't really have to go through to learn from. You're just getting them by working with a professional or building that relationship. Right. So I'm really interested, Carlos, with your experience as a franchise attorney and your experience as a general counsel with startup companies. what would you advise people to do, beginning with the end in mind, to really help them be successful when they're first starting with their idea or their business?
Yeah, I think with respect to the end in mind, I think, to kind of piggyback off what Josh was saying, I mean, it basically comes down to, having clearly defined short and long-term goals that revolve around managing and operating the company. I mean, that's important. When I was with AGC Networks, it was a startup company, but it had an Indian company parent that owned it. Their objectives, like, we want to grow out in the U.S. particular market. So they hired me as their general counsel, which means the head attorney at this particular company. So we had zero in revenues, but the first thing we had to do was put together the proper corporate governance structure, right? It's like, who is on the board of directors? How decisions are being made? Who can sign on behalf of the company? Who can sign these contracts? And things along those lines. And also having that proper governance also helped us have the ability to raise capital through private offerings. Because although bank lending is great, a lot of companies might not qualify for bank lending, or they might not want the liability associated with a bank loan, which will really require a personal guarantee. And that can kind of, put you in the position where you might not want to be starting out. Whereas if you do a private offering, then you can raise capital. It might be a little dilutive, but it's a more, at times, more efficient way to raise capital in order to grow. Next, with AGC Networks, which is now, it went from, startup to, after my first year there, 600 million, and now it's about a $700 million company. But it all comes down to taking care of the blocking and tackling on the initial setup of the company, like developing revenue generating customer agreements. I think it's important, if you're an entrepreneur, to already have your agreements in place as far as how you're going to go about selling to your customers, and not depending on the customers to come with their agreement. Because if you have your agreement, you're going to be more protected than that the customer may come up with their particular agreement as well. Also, I help to create viable supply chains. Again, that's about negotiating vendor agreements to make sure the limitation of liabilities, in the event something goes wrong, how does that affect your company? Does the vendor have the requisite insurance to be able to complete their task? Do they have the right relationships to be able to complete their task? Can we terminate and find someone else if they can't complete their task? And you can imagine, especially in the pandemic, there's a lot of supply chains that just didn't have the requisite infrastructure to be able to survive. And lastly, from a lawyer standpoint, is how do I mitigate your legal and regulatory exposure to liability? I mean, that's very important, whether it's contracts, making sure that you have the requisite protections in there, or if you're trying to raise capital, or if you're negotiating with a bank, what terms do you really need to look at? Because bank loans have a lot of what we call restrictive covenants, things that you can't do. And you want to make sure that you structure your loan agreement such that you don't trigger those defaults and put your company in peril. And fortunately, being I so love Josh mentioned about franchise, because that's what I do. Been a franchise attorney for 15 years, and I think it's the best distribution model in the world. But at the end of the day, I've represented companies from date matchmaking companies, developed them in the US to Australia, quick service restaurants, oil express places. Just about any concept can be franchised. So I have a multitude of experience with respect to basically advising companies on how they can go about being successful and putting down the right and the requisite infrastructure in place as they move forward.
Well, to piggyback on that, Carlos, as a financial advisor, a lot of times people are meeting with me for the first time. Right. And even who haven't met with me for the first time, I usually have to set them up and let them know what I need to know before I can give them advice. Mm-hmm. So when someone has an idea, they might be a mature business or a startup business, what's the critical things that they need to be prepared to answer for you before you can really give them some direction or advice as to what to do to start their foundational company so that it's scalable and franchisable?
Yeah, from my experience, one of the things I've done is basically develop a survey, right? From years of experience to kind of identify, here are 5 or 6 areas that we really need to take a look at to determine how we can go about making sure that you can grow. The first question, of course, is what type of business do you operate? Because I got to identify what's the regulatory dynamic so that we can make sure that it's structured in a legally compliant way. The second most important thing, of course, it goes back to corporate governance. We have to understand how many owners are in the company. Are you the only owner? Are you in the community property state? You have to think about, because that can have an effect. Suppose you get sick and pass away, then what happens with the business? People have to understand, when you form a company or a corporation, that entity is supposed to have a separate identity. It's not you. So you have to think of it as having a separate identity. And with that, you got to make sure you have the right structure in place so that it can continue to survive. The second thing is, like, how are you going to go about protecting your assets? When you hire employees, do you make sure they have non-competes? They can't solicit from you, your vendors? Are you taking those things into account? Have you registered a trademark, to protect your brand, because you're building that goodwill behind it? You want to try to get investors, but have you structured your company in a way in which it's efficient for investors to make an investment in your company? These are all the things that you really need to look at, as well as the fact, what is your exit plan? It's like, do you plan on selling your company to someone else? Do you want your kids to have it after you complete? We really need to know what your exit plan, because that needs to be determined on the front end of the structuring of helping these businesses taking it to the next level.
I love what you said, Carlos. You're music to my ears. You just don't realize it. How many times, and again, I tell people all the time, and I want to make sure everybody hears me, that what we're telling you is best practices to start, but a lot of times they've already started the business and they're 10 years, 15 years into the business and things have changed. So give you a great example, and Carlos, I definitely want you to speak to this, is the clients that I have that when they started, it was just him or her and a truck. And so they went on LegalZoom, and there's nothing wrong with LegalZoom, but they went on one of these websites. They started the company because it was just him, her, and a truck and one other person. And they created this legal entity, which may have worked at that particular time. However, 10 years later, they have gone from a $20,000 company to a $2 million company. They've gained assets. They've gained employees, but they're still operating under that same premise as if they were him, her, and a truck, and they're opening themselves up to liability. Tell us about that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, and your point is well taken. Yeah, we have to think about, we're going to actually grow this thing, right? So we have to really think about, how are we going to take this to the next level, and how are we going to go about protecting these assets so that the company can grow. And that's where, initially, like you said, a lot of people may not can afford the requisite consultants that you're looking for. But to your point, it's like research. I cannot, I'm a lawyer, so of course, LegalZoom, I can't be upset with LegalZoom because they provide a service to a certain segment. But I would say with that entrepreneur, it's like, if you do go to LegalZoom, also do some additional research to kind of get a feel for what other steps, what other information do I need in order to go about growing my company so that it can be successful. And after that, I think it's important that you actually find actual advisors that can really assist you, whether or not it's through paying them initially, but going through the SCORE program, going to the Empower series, right? This is a perfect example of Clifton has developed a program with a lot of connections and a lot of network. So if you keep your eyes open and research that, you will find information that will help you. So once you have the wife, the husband, and the truck, let's go about making this structure so that their assets are protected. They're making all this money, they can protect it because they didn't realize like their customer agreement didn't have a limitation of liability. Somebody got hurt, and the next thing you know, they're out of business. It's simple ways to structure that so that they can protect those assets as they move forward, setting up, restructuring the company in different entities, things along those lines. To your point about selecting the right entity, from the start, we can always convert. If you chose the wrong entity initially, you can always convert it. But it's very important because the tax code of 2017, from a political standpoint, I get it, but there are a lot of treasure trove opportunities for small businesses to really take into account about how they can go about structuring their business to be as tax efficient as possible. Because saving $1 in taxes is a great rate of return, because taxes is 21%.
Right. So, and like you said, so tap into those resources, because you have the resource partners of the Small Business Administration. I believe that is an underutilized resource. One of the reasons is because people don't really understand it. So the Small Business Association has resource partners like SCORE, the Small Business Development Center. And at the Small Business Development Center, you can get consultants that you do not have to pay for, but they have some level of expertise that can give you some guidance before you get to the point where you may want to pay for services from an accountant or a business advisor or an attorney. But there's resources out there, and that goes back to what you're saying, Josh. People got to put forth that sweat equity. Absolutely. There's value in that, right?
Absolutely. That sweat equity is the power. That sweat equity, again, when I started my businesses, I knew absolutely nothing about business. I was the person that I'm telling you guys not to be. I was the guy that had a dream and just started out the dream. However, I will say what I was smart enough to do, and it wasn't much that I was smart enough in, but what I was smart enough to do was to find some mentors, take them to lunch, ask them, where do I need to go? What resources can you put me in touch with? Can I wash your car in order for you to network me with this guy that I need to get in touch with? And I used that sweat equity and that hard work and that passion that permeated from my personality into my brand and into my business. And that's what allowed me to gain the resources that I did not have initially. And then once those resources came into play, that sweat equity turned into financial equity. And again, going back to Master P, he's from New Orleans. I'm from New Orleans. I was super excited about it. Going back to Master P, the first thing I did was any dollar that I made, I went back to my Carloses and say, hey, man, I went on this website and got me a free a $200 legal plan. I need you to take a look at it now that I got a little bit of jingle jangle. You know what I mean? I need you to check and see if this is what I have. And guess what? My Carlos told me, well, you really should be an S Corp, because right now you are opening up yourself to a lot of tax exposure by being a single member LLC. I was. And so then we changed our tax code. And then he said, but also what you need to do is you need to be looking into what we call personal liability protection outside of your business. Because remember, if you and I, Clifton, if we hit each other with two unmarked cars, we just exchange insurance cards. But if I have Josh Johnson Inc. on the side of my car, all of a sudden now your neck, your back, your leg hurt, everything else hurts, and you suing me for all I'm worth, right? Even though I don't have anything at the moment because I'm still a 2 to 3 year business, because I have my name on a sign on the side of the car, you think I'm a millionaire. So those type of things is what my Carlos comes in and says, hey, Josh, I saw what you did beforehand, but you know what? This is where we need to go now. Also, I'm going to put you in touch with Clifton as your financial advisor. I'm going to put you in touch with this person over here for insurance services so that you can have that additional protection. Because again, Clifton, you know this as well as everybody. Sometimes you know what you know that there are things that you don't know, and then there are things that you don't know that you don't even know you don't know. Right. And so when you get those mentors, when you get those accountability advisors, those team members that all you have to do is take them to lunch and work your butt off and show them that passion, those are the resources that get you the things that you didn't know and protect you before you even know you need protection.
I really enjoyed Josh being from Louisiana myself, and Master P, of course, is a legend, especially when he shouted out Shreveport, how you do that there.
That's right.
But that's the thing about it, right? We're showing you how to do that there, right? Like exactly what Josh was saying. Another thing, with respect to business owners, is we have to learn to share the economic benefits with others, right? It's like whether it's offering, incentives and equity to your employers and business advisors, taking on outside investors, or forming like JVs. There's numerous ways in which you can structure your business to maintain control of your business while also sharing the financial benefits with others. And that's something that Master P, from the outside looking in, that's something that he really deserves a lot of credit for, putting together a structure that not only benefits him, but it benefits the people that that are part of his team.
Absolutely. Creating that generational wealth inside his network and beyond.
But one of the things that the Empower Series believes is that there's resources around you that can help you take that next step to achieve your goal, no matter what level you're at. So whether it's just building that relationship or several degrees of separation. The other thing is that there's a lot of free resources out there. So every bank, including Comerica Bank, has a series of business courses for entrepreneurs that there's usually an application process, but there's no financial cost to be a part of that. And then the FDIC has a Money Smart program, not just for financial literacy, but also for small businesses. And the link to that is in the description below the video. But you can look at that, and to your point, Josh, again, spend sweat equity and go through the 11-module course on small businesses that the FDIC provides for free. You just work through it. They have a participant guide, instructor guide, and PowerPoint presentations. With that foundational information, you can get started in a way, but then when you meet with a professional like you, Carlos, then at least the business owner has a foundation of knowledge to really understand the value that you bring to their idea, and they can act on it. And those resources are all available for free, no financial cost whatsoever. And so with that being said, let's talk about some resources that are available. And I'm interested to get both of your opinions on this. When you look at knowledge, which is important, you look at money, which at the end of the day, somebody got to write a check for everything. And you look at relationships. Of those three things, what do you think is the most important? So they're all important, but what do you think is the most important? We'll start with you, Josh.
So again, whenever I'm talking to my clients, I tell them that money is one resource of many. Knowledge, creativity, relationships are just as valuable as money. So I think they're all important. And I think that you have to strategically look at what resources you have, what resources you don't have, and what resources you need. And so if I need money and I don't have it, then again, I'm going to go right back to that sweat equity and develop a knowledge base or a relationship and again, that knowledge and that relationship is going to help me to create that money that I now need to pay for the other services that I have. Again, if I have the money, but I don't have the relationships, then you know what? I'm taking some folks to lunch. I'm calling Carlos and I'm saying, hey, how much is your time worth? And I'm going to pay that bill because that knowledge that I gained using that money is more valuable than the money itself. So again, it's funny because I love that question. And I really think that it depends on what resources you have, what resources you need, and using those resources strategically to get the missing link.
Okay. What would you add to that, Carlos?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a great response by Josh. I mean, from my vantage point, and it probably could be because I'm a deal lawyer and it's always about consideration. It seems as if money is of those three is maybe the slightly more important one, because with the money, it's so many smart people in this world, right? I mean, we even have an immigration policy to bring those over for laps that we may have to bring smart people over here. And one thing I noticed about when I represent venture capitalists or private equity, they never seem to have a shortage of smart people asking them for money, in order to get their deal connected to and things of that nature. But to the point that Josh is making, it's like, but if you don't have the knowledge, then you have all this money, you're going to eventually lose some money if you don't have the right knowledge, because you're not investing in the right person in that particular industry. So I understand the interconnectedness of the three. I think it depends, but I think with respect to the minority communities more in general, is because of the structural barriers that have existed, is that cash is important to have access to, so that we can get the full benefit of our knowledge base as well as our relationships.
Okay, and like I said, all is important, but I'm going to add my 2 cents right now. So my belief is this: the most precious resource we have is our ideas, and that's what the basis of this. All ideas, every idea is a big idea. You got to begin with the end in mind. So we're really called to be a better steward of our ideas, because I think that will lead us to how we spend our time. And then that will lead us to relationships. And at the end of the day, like you're saying, Carlos, somebody got to write a check. Money talks, right? Money walks. So I believe of those three, relationships, knowledge, or money, the most important is relationships, because nothing of significance, and this is what Dr. George Fraser says, nothing of significance can ever be done alone. You got to work with somebody else. You talk about even Goldman Sachs 10,000 small businesses. One of the biggest value is the network and the networking that you have. So Carlos, you have to have clients, right? In order for you to add the value to help them to manifest their ideas. So if we're not working with somebody else, if we don't have the relationships to know who to talk to, who to build, who to collaborate with, I think that's foundational. But money, they're all important, but I just believe it starts with relationships, man, because again, what we're doing even today on this call, we're collaborating together, sharing information with the Empower Series community, of which, is going to be beneficial for, I think, over the millions of people, countless of people, to help them manifest their ideas and be a blessing to millions of more people. So relationships, I think, are critically important, but all three is definitely necessary to make something happen.
Clifton, I want to go back to something that you said again about being stewards of your ideas. That is more powerful than I think any of the people that are watching this realizes. And there's because being steward to those ideas really spawns the connection with the creativity, with the relationships, with the money. And what I mean by that is, my idea, if I'm not developing that idea, if I'm not building that sweat equity and figuring out how to make it tangible, and then I go and seek out a relationship with Clifton, and Clifton, you're asking me all these questions, and I have ums and uhs, and man, I'm telling you, it's going to be great, right? Then I'm wasting your time and devaluing your relationship, right? And so I'm not being a steward of my idea, because I'm not putting it in tangible form and communicating it and articulating it to you that you can see my vision and help me get my vision to where it is. And guess what happens then? Next thing, I get my idea that's not tangible, that's not up and going. And I call Carlos and I say, I want to spend 4 hours of that pro bono time. And then in those 4 hours, Carlos is asking me all these questions and I'm going, good question. You know what? But it's going to be great. Well, those 4 hours are gone. And now if I want to speak to Carlos again, it's going to cost me a little money. And so the first thing that I say is, you know what? I went to that program and it wasn't a good program. Why wasn't it a good program? Man, I spent 4 hours and didn't get anything out of it. Well, that was because I was not a steward of my idea. Somebody says, man, I went to speak to Clifton. I went to speak to Josh. I went through the 10KSB program. I went to SBDC. It wasn't worth my time. Why? Because I was not a steward of my idea. So I didn't put in the work. I didn't make that idea tangible. I didn't develop that idea so that it can grow and mature, so that I can maximize my relationships and maximize that dollar that I'm spending for guidance and research. So the first thing is, I've got to be a steward of my idea. I love that.
Man, I love that too. You just added something to it. So that's really important. Because a lot of times people get stuck with, hey, I need money. It's like, well, sit back. Did you do the work to really crystallize your idea? And before you meet with a professional, kind of look through all of the things that Carlos said to think through before you sit down with the professionals, to make sure that meeting is very productive, right? Dr. George Fraser also said some things about business. He said, look, life is about building relationships. And your business, regardless of what it is about building relationships, whether it's with your clients, your customers, your employees, your contractors, your vendors. It's all about relationships. And no matter what business you're in the business of building relationships. And so again, man, the core is there. And the other thing he talks about with what is a relationship? And he says a relationship is where you meet somebody, you do either one of four things. You either add, subtract, divide, or multiply. And he doesn't understand why people are spending time with others who are taking from their lives and you're taking from theirs. It's like people who are not doing anything want to hang out with other people who are not doing anything. But what we're doing here on this program is that we're really pointing to each other's lives, because Carlos, you referred me to a CPA that's helping the Empower series, right? And then me introducing you, you're collaborating with Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses to really put some other content out there that's going to help business owners. So we're adding to each other's lives here, and through that comes multiplication, where we're going to be benefiting many, many other lives. So this is a prime example of how relationships are critically important, how it's determining how we're spending our time. We're adding to each other's lives, which is a multiplication, and through that is going to come a lot of money that would not have come if people weren't a part of this program. So my other question is this, as we kind of get to almost the end of this program, since we know that a lot of people are running into funding issues, like they're looking at, man, I got this idea, there's this franchise out there, but I just don't have the funding. What type of advice do you give somebody who has a block thinking that their challenge is not getting funding? And we'll start with you, Josh. What do you advise people?
So a couple of things. The first thing is seek out those free resources. We talked about SCORE. We talked about the SBA. We talked about Small Business Development Centers, SBDC. We talked about Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses. There are so many programs out there because the backbone of America is small business. There are so many programs out there that are designed to work with small businesses to give them that support that they need. There are community development and financial institutions that we call CDFIs and local-based lenders that we have. When you get in touch with the SBA, the SBDC, the 10KSB, and some of those other resources, they put you in touch with those CDFIs and those local community-based lenders. What those lenders and what those network resources will tell you, again, is to have a business plan in place. Have your idea, be a steward of your idea, make your idea tangible. Understand that right now I'm a mom and pop shop, but my goal is to have this in the next 5 to 10 years. Have some financials put in place. Again, you don't have to do this yourself. You can use those resources to help you put those financials in place. And then finally, if you don't succeed on the front end, that doesn't mean it's a bad idea. That means we got some more work to do. We got some more sweat equity to do. And so oftentimes when my clients come in and they say, well, Josh, I got turned down for this loan, I'm going to go get a job. I'm going to say, well, is that idea good enough? What do we need to do differently to get there? And make that idea tangible. Turn those holes that you had into fixes and solutions, and then go back and access that capital again.
Okay. What would you add to that, Carlos?
I think from my practice, I am a little bit biased with respect to, I think we have to have more information about private offerings. Because one of the things Josh mentioned earlier is that the Quick Lube person needed $50,000 in cash, right? Banks can be very difficult to get loans initially. I think for a lot of small entrepreneurs, we have to understand what private offerings, basically structure our companies so that we can sell equity to others, right? Now, there's regulatory issues associated with that, but we have to be in a position where we can have these small private offerings. If you can't get a bank loan, then you should be able to raise, 50,000 or so from 10 people. You just need to make sure you have the right documentation in place. Coupled with the fact, I just think that, franchising is really a overlooked distribution model that I think a lot of small businesses should take a look into, because you can basically accelerate growth at a more cost efficient manner. If I own one unit and I want to do another corporate store, then that may be another $200,000, $300,000 in costs that I have to put out of my own pocket. Whereas if I'm willing to share the benefits with someone else and train them up, then I can get the benefit of building the goodwill of my business on someone else, basically to finance some of the operational costs associated with that. And I think, and with that, I can have a substantial amount of control over the fees I charge how I protect my brand, and how I enforce my rights. And couple that with from the benefits from the franchisee, it's like I'm not learning from start, right? I'm learning from a successful model. So that tends to make me going to have a higher rate of success. That's going to increase my chance of getting capital or financing and things along those lines. So it's just, thinking outside the box, working with advisors and consultants to just kind of get a feel for, hey, what I hear about EB5, different type of investment programs that people may not know. It's like, look, you can have immigrants that's looking for a permanent residency in the US. If they invest X amount of dollars, then they can get that. And in return, you can get the capital that you need in order to grow. So we just have to expand. And that's one of the purposes of these types of series, is to expand the horizon and help reduce the information deficit that exists. And I think another free, a lot of information in a free form is public filings, right? Every company that in every industry, typically you can find public filings about them, like 10Ks, 10Qs, to kind of get a feel for the type of information that you're going to need to rely upon to develop your own business plan and business strategy.
Yeah, I'm telling you, you mentioned a lot of things that I'm sure many people are not even aware of when they're starting a business, which could be additional sources of capital. But what's really important is they have to go back and be a good steward of their idea. Mm-hmm. Because I believe that good ideas can attract resources.
Yes.
But if you don't have a well thought out idea, you just have a vague dream, it's not, you're going to have some struggle, right? So a couple of questions I have for both of you is, so first for you, Josh, if someone wants to get in touch with you and get more information, how do they do that?
So first and foremost, they can shoot me an email. I love networking with small businesses for two reasons. Number one is I like to put myself into the know with upcoming things, and I like to share that knowledge with my 10KSB alumni. I have over 500 10KSB alumni that I would love to partner in with other up and coming businesses and share ideas and knowledge with them. So first and foremost, shoot me an email. My email is Josh, Josh.Johnson, JOHNSON @dcccd.edu. I know it's a lot of D's and C's, but it's Josh.Johnson @dcccd.edu. Also, if they're interested in the program, they can contact my director. Her name is Natasha Harris. She is the director of outreach for the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program. So I definitely will have her information, her contact information in the program as well.
Okay. And you were going to say something else. Were you going to add to the
Yeah,
question?
so I wanted to go back to something you and Carlos said about attracting people to your idea. We can't forget about angel investors. We can't forget about your friends and family who believe in what you're doing. So again, whenever you're starting out a business and you come out with these ideas, you're going to have the naysayers. And those naysayers will most likely be people that are close to you or around you. I'm not talking about going to those people. I'm talking about seed funding from the people that recognize your passion, see your sweat equity, and want to build on that idea that you have into a promising business. You can go into those guys and talk to them about, possibly investing in your business. But before you do so, go and see Carlos and ask them, what is the best way for me to be that seed funder, protect myself as the loaner or the investor in your business, and then, also help you to prosper.
Absolutely. And if you're offering equity, even if it's one share to your moms, if they're not an accredited investor, you've got to give them a plan, or that's illegal. So I think that's important to what Josh was saying. It's like to offer securities to a broad number of investors. Your company has to form the relationship that you and Josh were talking about, with investors prior to asking them to make that investment. So I think that is one of the reasons why this Empower series is so great, because really through your network with Clifton, you help land the groundwork to satisfy these pre-existing relationship requirements under securities laws. And this is very powerful because failure to comply with non-solicitation requirements can subject the business owner. I don't care if you form a corporation, it doesn't matter. It can pierce through the corporation that you can have personal liability associated with that.
Right. And Carlos, for you, given the value of your expertise and your time and the clients you work with, tell us again the type of business owners that you can help, and for those business owners, how to get in touch with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's really such a great opportunity with Husch Blackwell, because initially it was like to Josh's point, it's like I gotta wait, in the process until someone can really afford to have these discussions. But with this communities of the initiative program that we have here, in essence, it can be instantaneously, because we're actively looking for minority companies that qualify. And by qualifying, meaning, typically they can't afford these type of legal services themselves up to 3 or 4 hours. So it's broad based, and we're in 18 cities, including Dallas, Austin, Houston, and DC. So really, this hopefully will be a catalyst to help entrepreneurs get that legal advice earlier in the process as opposed to later, because another benefit of having a lawyer is the confidentiality and privilege associated with it, right? You can share your information with me. I ethically obligated, can't do anything with it. Whereas if you share it with others, there's an issue associated with that. So I could best strategize on how to go about sharing your information in order to protect it. But just excited. Thanks so much to be a part of this panel. Enjoyed being with you. And Josh, we got to play some dominoes later. But you can reach me by email at carlos.white@huschblackwell.com. So that should be carlos.white@huschblackwell.com, or via phone at 214-999-6182. And if you are a business that's interested in learning more about how legal strategy can take your business to the next level, please contact me. I promise I will not bite or judge you.
So Carlos, with this program, this Community for Change initiative, how many different cities are you in across the United States?
18 cities, including DC, Austin, Houston, of course, Dallas, St. Louis, Chicago. So we basically in cities that have higher populations of minority entrepreneurs. And we want to basically provide a platform and a catalyst so that they can get the legal strategy services, as well as, to Josh's point, it's like you need a business consultant, you need a marketer, you need a team, because you can't specialize in everything. And working with someone that does deals, you see it all the time about how a team puts together a deal so that a company can be successful.
Yeah. So critical again. So the resources that are available through both of you is priceless. So as we kind of wrap this up, Josh, I'll start with you. What would be your closing remark, the thing that you want people to take away with from our program today?
I think you said it perfectly, Clifton. Number one, if you're going to build your business, be successful with the end in mind, be a steward of your idea. Be a steward of your idea. Understand sweat equity, build those relationships, turn those relationships into money, and then build a team, whether it be a free team or a paid team, or a combination of both. It starts with being a steward of your idea.
Thank you, Josh. And Carlos, what would your closing comments be?
Yeah, in certain respects, this could potentially be the best of times for companies, given the amount of stimulus money in the market and the newfound focus on addressing barriers that many businesses face, while also being at the same time the worst of times as it relates to having to operate through this active pandemic. But your business needs to really be prepared to take advantage of the market. And it was a pleasure being here again. And I implore your audience to support the Empower series. These types of programs are crucial to reducing the information and wealth gap that exists in many of our communities by providing the information to navigate, sustain, and grow. I mean, having someone like Josh on here with his expertise from a business consultant and the way he's able to break it down in morsels in which people can understand, that takes a lot of experience, that takes a lot of knowledge. So I really appreciate you, Clifton, hosting these type of shows so that we can get this type of expertise out into the community.
Well, hey, man, I just want to tell you, I am in deep gratitude for both of you spending time, portion of your life, to really pour into the Empower series, pour into the community. So thank you, because again, like I said, nothing of significance can ever be done alone.
Thank you for watching our Empower Series YouTube video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Remember to hit the subscribe button below, as well as the little button to be notified the next time we upload our video. Until then, stay connected with us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever your social media flavor is. Inspire the world to thrive. See you soon.